People think they know you. They just see you as Bob. They pity Bob. It is my great honor to introduce to you the Sentry.
Hey guys, that's cool then. I don't want to hurt you guys. Why don't you just turn yourselves in?
No, you don't want to do this, Bobby.
You can call me the Sentry.
Finish the job, Robert.
No.
Why would a god take orders from anyone at all?
Aren't you tired of fighting? Let me help you.
In the sprawling list of Marvel superheroes, few characters are as paradoxical, potent, and deeply tragic as Robert Reynolds, better known as the Sentry. His story isn't merely about boundless power, it's about mental illness, addiction, trauma, guilt, and the terrifying prospect that a man meant to save the world might also destroy it. Robert Reynolds is a walking paradox. He possesses cosmic power on a scale few can comprehend, yet is paralyzed by fear and self-loathing. Unlike Superman, whose invincibility and optimism are a beacon of hope, the Sentry's invulnerability is a curse. He's not a man of steel, he's a broken mind wrapped around a nuclear core. Every heroic act inches him closer to annihilation because the void, his dark mirror, is always waiting, always rising with him. His mind is both guardian and executioner, and that terrifying duality makes him one of the most tragic figures in the Marvel Universe. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we're breaking down the origins, history, and powers of the Sentry. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification icon to stay up to date on all the latest content, and click the like button to help appease the algorithm gods. Also, if you'd like to make a suggestion on what you want me to cover next, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments below.
All-powerful, invincible, stronger than all of the Avengers rolled into one.
In March of 1947, in the aftermath of World War II, Canada's Department K collaborated with remnants of the US Operation Rebirth to form Project Sentry. While Captain America was the ultimate result of their first super soldier serum, this new endeavor aimed higher, exponentially higher. Their ambition was staggering, create a being 100,000 times more powerful than Steve Rogers. But as with many scientific experiments born in secrecy and hubris, the project quickly spiraled out of control. By the 1970s, Project Sentry had fractured into over 1,000 sub-projects scattered among classified labs and private corporations. Oversight collapsed and the entire endeavor dissolved into a bureaucratic black hole of ambition, lost records, and weaponized science. Decades later, a struggling meth addict named Robert Reynolds stumbled upon one of those forgotten labs. Desperate for a fix, he broke in and found what would later be called the Golden Sentry Serum. Unaware of what it truly was, he injected himself, and the result was catastrophic. Reynolds became something unimaginable. His body pulsed with energy equal to 1 million exploding suns. The transformation killed his partner and several guards instantly. The full cost of Project Sentry's ambition had been realized, and it had chosen the most unlikely vessel. Despite the chaos, Robert wanted to do good. He was haunted by what he'd done, but felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He stitched together a costume, rebranded himself as the Sentry, and stepped into the spotlight as a gleaming paragon of virtue, a superhero in an age that had lost faith in them. He was noble, charismatic, and human. His immense powers were matched by his sharp intellect and emotional depth. He formed immediate bonds with key heroes across the Marvel Universe: Reed Richards, Tony Stark, Charles Xavier, Spider-Man, even the Hulk. His insight was so keen that he deduced Peter Parker's secret identity almost instantly. For a time after his transformation, the Sentry soared. He battled Doctor Doom, stood shoulder to shoulder with the Fantastic Four, and became an integral part of Earth's defense against both terrestrial and cosmic threats. He married Lindy Lee, the one woman who truly loved the man behind the god. He even adopted a sidekick, Scout, a bright-eyed boy inspired by his example. But beneath the light, shadows stirred. Lindy learned about his drug use but kept it to herself, hoping that love or heroism might keep him whole. Years later, she would admit that she would have ended him on their wedding night. And then came the Void. It emerged as a formless horror, a shadow that fed on fear and brought death in its wake. But it wasn't just a villain. The Void was Robert. Or rather, it was a living embodiment of his repressed trauma and shame, twisted into monstrous shape by the same serum that had given him godhood. The Sentry and the Void were two halves of the same broken whole. For every heroic act, the Void responded with devastation. It maimed Scott, unleashed the Hulk in a berserker rampage, and slaughtered over 1 million people in Manhattan.
You're safe, little one.
I know people were amazed by the Sentry's powers and the Thunderbolts, but I'm here to let you know that the film barely scratched the surface of what he's capable of. Before we continue with his history in the comics, I'd love to get into some of the incredible things he's capable of doing. At the core of Robert Reynolds' transformation lies the Golden Sentry Serum. Unlike Steve Rogers, whose enhancement remained bound by biological limitations, Reynolds underwent a profound molecular shift. The serum didn't just boost his physiology, it fundamentally altered his phase reality existence. Robert was pulled slightly out of sync with the material world, operating on a wavelength removed from conventional time and space. His body became a living battery of cosmic energy, charged by a photosynthetic reaction that heightened his consciousness to a hyper-aware state. It's said he might originate from a parallel time stream, one where stars are constantly being born and annihilated in an endless loop of creation and destruction. This infinite stellar cycle, if true, is what sustains him. He became a being of light tethered to entropy itself. His power is spoken of in hushed tones even among the elite. Nick Fury, Reed Richards, Emma Frost, Charles Xavier, and Norman Osborn all described him as something beyond a mega-level, a being with no measurable ceiling. Carla Sofen, better known as Moonstone, once warned that what Wanda Maximoff did to the Avengers was nothing compared to what the Sentry could unleash if unrestrained. And this isn't hyperbole. He's gone toe-to-toe with cosmic threats like Galactus and emerged intact. One of the most underappreciated yet terrifying aspects of Sentry's power set is his latent molecular manipulation. This ability was thrust into the spotlight during his confrontation with Molecule Man. Owen Reese transmuted Sentry into liquid, atomized him, and yet somehow Robert willed himself back into being. He didn't just regenerate, he reassembled himself from the subatomic level, hinting at a deep-rooted command over matter. Unlike Reese, who exercises surgical precision, Sentry's molecular control is less conscious and more instinctive, woven into his being. Still, the implications are vast. He has resisted disintegration attacks, mimicked other superpowers by rearranging matter and energy, and even hinted at shapeshifting, especially in his Void persona. It's likely that his astonishing healing factor is less biological and more a form of subconscious self-reconstruction. As his confidence grew, especially after shedding his agoraphobia during the Uncanny Avengers era, Sentry gained greater mastery over this ability. It allowed him to engage in feats of power on a scale reminiscent of a Green Lantern without a ring. He has conjured constructs from raw will, a miniature werewolf that fit in his palm, enormous sand golems that knocked out a giant-sized wasp, and force fields that repelled cosmic energy blasts from Terrax. In one battle, he psychokinetically halted Mjolnir mid-throw, a testament not just to raw strength but control over physical laws. These manifestations are born from his emotional state. When he's focused, his imagination can sculpt reality. More chilling is Sentry's capacity for biokinesis, control over biological life down to the cellular level. This gift is as benevolent as it is horrifying. In one instance, just by entering a room, he healed a girl left in a vegetative state with severe spinal trauma. In contrast, as the Void, he's inflicted terminal cancer on victims that were miles away, seemingly rewriting their biology on a molecular level with lethal intent. The dichotomy could not be more explicit. In one form, he brings life. In the other, he manifests death. The ability to cure or kill without contact, without even conscious intent, makes him a force of creation and destruction. If developed further, this power could allow him to resurrect the dead or alter the genetic code of an entire species. But, as always, the question is not what he can do, it's whether he's mentally stable enough to choose the right path. That question became disturbingly relevant when Lindy Reynolds, his wife, was murdered by Ultron. In a moment of unbearable grief, Robert touched her lifeless body and brought her back. There was no spell, no technology, no intention, just sorrow, love, and a surge of cosmic power. He didn't know how he did it, he was as shocked as everyone, and that's what's so unsettling. Even his most miraculous feats seem to defy his own understanding. He is a man who, in moments of psychological distress, can tear open the veil between life and death. That his resurrection power is involuntary only makes it more terrifying. The Sentry also exhibits what can only be described as retroactive immortality. He doesn't age, doesn't decay, and most importantly, doesn't stay dead. Death is a suggestion, a pause, a nap as he once described it after sacrificing himself for Doctor Strange to channel Yggdrasil's power. Whether it's Sentry or the Void, both entities have died multiple times only to return. He is tied to the serum in a way that renders finality impossible. The universe itself seems unable to let him go. His strength is equally surreal. It fluctuates based on his mental state, but begins at levels that rival the Hulk and easily surpass most of Earth's champions. He has torn Carnage in half, snapped the cosmic weapon of Terrax, and overwhelmed the Absorbing Man. During Siege, he famously ripped Ares, the literal god of war, in two. When the Void emerges, it becomes worse. Hulk's limbs were snapped like twigs, and in a later incarnation, the Sentry shattered the moon inside his own constructed reality just to smoke out his dark half. After fusing with the Void into a singular entity, he reached new heights, eviscerating Scout, his own former sidekick, enhanced with the Golden Sentry serum as if swatting a fly. He later fought the Avengers, including Thor, Captain Marvel, and She-Hulk, and overwhelmed them all. No one truly knows his upper limit. If he ever had one, it no longer exists. But Sentry isn't just strong, he's fast. He operates on a temporal scale few can comprehend. He can catch bullets mid-flight, react to attacks in milliseconds, and fly from Earth to the Sun in seconds. Light takes 8 minutes to make that trip, by the way. He bends space-time through motion alone, and Thor has described watching Sentry move as deeply disorienting. In combat, Sentry regulates his strength at hyperspeed, adjusting on the fly with more precision than a supercomputer. He thinks and acts in fractions of time. His agility and reflexes elevate him beyond normal perception, making him nearly untouchable. Unless, of course, he allows himself to be hit. And that's the central paradox of Sentry's invulnerability. It is absolute until he decides it isn't. He has withstood nuclear detonations, cosmic assaults, magical disintegration, and deep space trauma. Tony Stark's scanners can't find a flaw, Fury admits S.H.I.E.L.D. can't kill him. Yet in moments of depression or suicidal clarity, Sentry lowers his defenses. During Siege, it took Thor and the power of a god to stop him, and only because Robert wanted to die. In other moments, he's allowed himself to be pummeled because he feared what his retaliation might unleash. His invincibility is terrifying because it's voluntary. You cannot stop the Sentry, he can only stop himself. His biology has also moved beyond mortal needs. He doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't even use the bathroom. He may simulate mortal behaviors out of habit or social grace, but he doesn't require them. In this way, he is post-human, a being that only resembles a man. Even his stamina is functionally infinite. His muscles produce no fatigue toxins, and his enhanced physiology allows him to fight indefinitely. But again, his psyche is the variable. If stable, he can endure forever. If fractured, he might collapse within minutes. What's scary is how his senses are profoundly heightened. He hears across the full audio spectrum, able to isolate a single heartbeat across continents. His vision cuts through cloud cover from orbit. These hypersensors allow him to detect and interpret so much data that it's almost a form of precognition. He's never surprised, not because of power, but because of perception. Sentry's flight isn't flight in the traditional sense, it's the violent rejection of spatial limits. He doesn't soar or glide, he cleaves through the cosmos. His velocity is so intense that it seems to bend space-time itself, a warp drive of raw willpower. Theorists speculate that Sentry manipulates molecular density to avoid the mass accumulation problem at relativistic speed, violating Einstein's laws as casually as he breaks bones. Whether through spatial folding, quantum tunneling, or sheer reality defiance, his flight is not merely fast, it is elemental. Teleportation, though rarer, is another extension of his reality-bending nature. After speaking with Nate Gray, Sentry vanished in a radiant burst of light. He's even breached Reed Richards' reinforced dimensional fields, a feat that places him among the top-tier manipulators of reality in Marvel canon. Whether this is achieved through photonic displacement or some form of god-tier light-speed transition is unclear, but it fits a pattern. The Sentry doesn't move through space, space moves around the Sentry. His power stems from solar energy. The power of 1,000,000 exploding suns isn't just a poetic exaggeration. It's a literal descriptor of his internal output. He absorbs radiation from nearly any source, be it the microverse or ambient cosmic background fields. He's recharged Iron Man's armor with ease and casually replenished his own strength in battles that would leave gods breathless. Every aspect of his being, flight, regeneration, teleportation, energy blasts, is powered by a continuous closed energy loop. He is a living nuclear singularity, a battery that cannot run out. Yet this energy isn't his alone. Sentry has shared it. He empowered Billy Turner, transforming him into the sidekick Scout. He enhanced a dog named Normie into the golden-powered watchdog. He even imbued the Hulk with a portion of his essence to shield him from void corruption. These were spiritual imprints of his own godhood shared with others. How he does it remains a mystery, but the effect is undeniable. He creates other gods. At his core is light, not just as fuel, but as expression. Sentry manipulates light itself, shaping hard light constructs in glowing energy fields with the same ease with which he punches through planets. He can use this ability to block a blast as well as shape light into barriers, blades, and bursts. His light is symbolic, an extension of his psyche. When he is in control, it is golden and radiant. When the void encroaches, it turns crimson and wild. In a metaphysical sense, his control over light may mirror his self-awareness. The more fractured his mind, the more chaotic the glow. But this isn't just about brightness. His light can blind groups, calm rage monsters, and even alter mental states. In one striking moment, he pacified the Hulk, not with force, but with radiance, reducing the beast to a docile, childlike state by emitting a specific frequency of light. This wasn't hypnosis, it was neurological modulation through photon emission, making him a walking nervous system override switch. On the opposite end of the spectrum lies his ability to manipulate absence, to bend light around himself and become invisible. This rarely used ability suggests stealth that belies his bombastic presence. He doesn't need to vanish with sound and fury, he can simply not be seen. When he chooses violence, it takes the form of golden energy blasts that behave like directed supernovas. His beams have melted Hulk's skin, leveled buildings, disintegrated Counterverse-infected Nova, destroyed the Hulkbuster armor, and annihilated legions of enemy troops. These aren't optic blasts, they're condensed apocalypses. When fused with the void, they shift to crimson, a symbolic merging of divine fury and unrelenting darkness. His beams are expressions of his duality, the purest form of inner war, weaponized and unleashed. That duality extends into his mastery of darkness. When Sentry and the Void merge, he gains access to umbrakinesis, control over living shadow. He can generate tendrils of darkness that lash, pierce, bind, and destroy. These shadows aren't illusions, they are physical constructs of terror, often shaped into tentacles or nightmarish forms. They are not simply weapons, but expressions of his fear, doubt, and subconscious wrath. The same way his light mirrors stability, the darkness reflects his chaos. His mind is just as dangerous. Though not a telepath in the conventional sense, Sentry's psionic abilities are profound. He once implanted memories into comic book writer Paul Jenkins, a metafictional reality twist that broke the fourth wall. More significantly, with the help of Reed Richards and Doctor Strange, he erased all memory of himself from the minds of everyone on Earth. Not glamour, not a spell, a psychic wipe on a planetary scale. His mind may also be responsible for stabilizing matter under stress, a kind of subconscious telekinetic influence on physics itself. But that mind is fragile. The same tool that warps reality can shatter it. And then there's Robert Reynolds, the man, the genius, the one who built the Watchtower, an orbital sanctuary housing Clock, an AI he designed that rivals anything Stark or Richards ever made. Cybernetics, robotics, advanced AI are all mastered by him, making him an architectural and engineering savant. And still, for all his overwhelming power, Sentry is not invincible. His weaknesses are woven into the same fabric of his powers, echoing his contradictions. Antimatter, a force of pure negation, disrupts him at a molecular level. In battles against Anti-Man, Sentry's reality-warping capabilities faltered. Antimatter doesn't merely injure him, it unravels him, destabilizing the structure he subconsciously holds together. It's poetic, almost cruel. The man who defies physics is still bound by its inverse. But no force threatens him more than his own mind. Robert Reynolds suffers from a chronic mental illness, a fractured identity plagued by dissociative episodes and schizophrenia-like symptoms. When stable, he's able to resist magical manipulation, even rejecting Doctor Strange's enhancements outright. But when unbalanced, he becomes a psychic open wound, vulnerable not just to outside attack, but to himself. Every day is a battle to remain the Sentry, and not become the end of everything. Certain environments also weaken him. In the antimatter realm of the negative zone, his powers deteriorate. The longer he remains, the weaker he becomes, while the Void's influence grows stronger. It's a symbolic space, a mirror to his internal imbalance, where light fails and darkness thrives. Only after merging fully with the Void does he overcome this limitation, suggesting that embracing his darkness might be the only way to survive, and perhaps the final step towards losing his humanity. Finally, in an ironic twist, his radiant godhood is vulnerable to the metaphysical. Chi, the spiritual energy mastered by martial artists like Iron Fist, can harm him. While immune to most conventional attacks, spiritual strikes penetrate his otherwise impenetrable form. This weakness is more than physical, it's symbolic. Chi represents inner balance, spiritual harmony. Sentry, the fractured god, is a being of imbalance. His vulnerability to Chi is a reflection of his inner chaos. In sum, the Sentry is not simply a hero, he's a living contradiction. Man and God, savior and destroyer, light and shadow. His power rivals cosmic entities. His flaws reflect the darkest corners of human fragility. And it is that duality, this paradox of unlimited power constrained by emotional fragility, that makes him one of the most dangerous forces in the Marvel Universe.
No, because you said I was all-powerful, invincible, and stronger than a whole team of Avengers, which includes at least one god.
Eventually, after his transformation and the attack on Manhattan that killed millions, the truth became clear. The only way to stop the Void was to erase the Sentry. Together, Robert, Reed Richards, and Doctor Strange created a psychic veil to purge all knowledge of the Sentry from human memory, including Robert's own. The world forgot the Sentry, and by extension, forgot the Void. But the roots of the Void's origin went even deeper. During an earlier encounter with his enemy, the General, Robert had been exposed to the mutant mastermind who implanted a psychic virus in his mind, a false belief that using his powers would unleash the devil himself. That suggestion, planted like a splinter, became the foundation of the Void. Years later, Robert's memories returned, and with them, so did the Void. It began a fresh wave of destruction, slaughtering heroes across Europe. Robert tried to reconnect with his old allies, but only the Hulk remembered him. As the Void returned to Manhattan, Robert joined forces with Reed Richards and others to reawaken the Watchtower, his forgotten base of operations. They defeated the Void again, and just as before, wiped Robert from the collective memory of mankind. But his fate was never to remain buried. Robert resurfaced once more, checking himself into the Raft, S.H.I.E.L.D's most secure prison, claiming he had killed Lindy. Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson visited him with Luke Cage and Spider-Woman, but before they could fully investigate, Electro triggered a mass breakout. Amid the chaos, Foggy was trapped in a cell with Robert and pleaded with him to act. The Sentry took flight, silently and decisively, tearing Carnage in half in the vacuum of space before disappearing again. This act of heroism helped catalyze the formation of the new Avengers, though Robert himself remained on the fringes, a myth and a warning in equal measure. When the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. confronted him with anomalies in his existence, no physical records, no digital trail, and a wife who was still alive, Robert panicked. His identity was crumbling, but Emma Frost used her telepathy to restore his mind. With his memories returned and the Void temporarily subdued, Robert joined the Avengers as an official member. The Watchtower reappeared, perched above Stark Tower, both a symbol of hope and a ticking time bomb. But even among allies, he was feared. Yelena Belova stole his powers during an attack on the Avengers and quickly succumbed to the Void's presence, proof that Robert's dark half had become an inseparable aspect of the power itself. Before she could say more, she was liquefied by AIM to erase any trace. Later, Iron Man exploited Clock, Robert's internal alert system, flooding him with thousands of false emergencies, rendering him catatonic. Even his friends understood he was too powerful to leave unchecked. Despite his efforts to return to normalcy, Robert's mental state continued to deteriorate. Though he saved lives every day and was revered by the public, he remained haunted. He convinced himself the Void was imprisoned in a vault in the Watchtower, but when his AI companion Clock brought in psychiatrist Dr. Cornelius Worth, that illusion shattered. The vault contained only a chair and a mirror, no monster, only Robert's reflection. He had lied to himself to survive. He had built the illusion for his own sake, to pretend the Void could be contained. Confronted with this truth, Robert fled to the fairground, the place where he'd first taken the serum. There, the Sentry and the Void clashed, physically and ideologically. The Void insisted it was the real personality, and that the Sentry was just a lie, a fantasy crafted by a guilty addict. With only fragments of his own memory, Robert couldn't be sure. He finally confessed to Cornelius what he had long suppressed. He was just a teenage junkie who stumbled into godhood. The guilt of that act had spawned the Void, and he'd been trying to outrun it ever since. Desperate for answers, he went to Dr. Strange. Alongside the serum's original creator, Strange trapped Robert in an illusion where he was simply a mentally ill man in a world without heroes. But Robert rejected the lie and shattered the illusion. He traveled to Antarctica and met the Void again. This time, the Void revealed that Robert's blood was so potent that world governments had tried and failed to kill him multiple times. His existence was a threat to global stability. Enraged by the manipulations, the betrayals, and the unbearable weight of his existence, the Sentry cast the Void into the heart of the sun, declaring that he would no longer be bound by lies, fear, or duality. When the superhuman civil war broke out across the Marvel Universe, a bitter ideological conflict over whether enhanced individuals should register with the government, Robert Reynolds tried to avoid the entire affair. Haunted by the knowledge that any decision he made could lead to tragedy, he exiled himself to the moon. There he encountered the Inhumans and rekindled a relationship with Crystal. It was Iron Man who personally sought him out, not to coerce but to appeal to his reason. Tony Stark didn't need another soldier, he needed a symbol, and Robert, however reluctant, agreed. Siding with the pro-registration forces, the Sentry still tried to remain neutral. He stepped in only when the stakes were too high to ignore, like when he knocked out Wolverine during a clash and handed him over to S.H.I.E.L.D., all while insisting he didn't want to take sides. His role throughout Civil War felt like that of an unwilling god, dragged into mortal politics, fighting a war he wanted no part in. Once the dust settled, he made a rare public statement supporting the Registration Act and was drafted into Tony Stark's newly formed Mighty Avengers team. But peace was an illusion. Robert was never whole. Despite his polished image and new team affiliation, he remained a man at odds with himself. Stark and Miss Marvel offered mental health support, yet Robert's instability never fully subsided. In their first major mission together, facing a newly reborn female Ultron, Sentry's power overwhelmed every threat in their path. Even Ultron admitted he was exceptionally hard to kill, but when she endangered Lindy, Robert's wife, his restraint snapped. He became unhinged mid-battle, nearly jeopardizing the mission. Later, when Lindy was resurrected, he overheard her begging Tony Stark to kill him. The one person who once believed in him was now terrified of what he might become. Things spiraled. During a symbiote invasion in New York, the Sentry was one of the few not infected. He traced the outbreak to Latveria alongside the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D., which led to a skirmish with Dr. Doom and an incident of accidental time travel. Robert, unbound by causality, helped return them to the present, but even Doom noted that the Sentry's actions in the past had been erased or forgotten, implying something unnatural about his very presence in time. Then came the event that would cement Robert's place in Marvel mythos, World War Hulk. When Bruce Banner returned from exile, consumed by rage and bent on vengeance, it was the Sentry the world turned to. But Robert hesitated. He ignored calls from the Fantastic Four. He refused to meet with the President. But when Hulk forced Earth's heroes into gladiatorial combat and condemned the Illuminati to death, Robert intervened. The resulting battle was one of Marvel's most cataclysmic. Sentry and Hulk unleashed their full might, gods in human form, leveling New York with every blow. The fury was so intense that both men burned out, their energy spent. In the wake of that battle, Robert's psyche continued to unravel. During Secret Invasion, when Skrulls infiltrated Earth, he boarded a Skrull vessel and saw the vision transform into the Void. Haunted by this vision, he fled, not just the ship, but the planet. He flew to Saturn. By the time he returned, Robert was gone. The Void had taken over. Back on Earth, a Skrull infiltrator assaulted the Watchtower and attacked Lindy. The Void retaliated with devastating force, annihilating the Skrull invaders. But Lindy recognized something chilling. Whenever Bob couldn't do something as a Sentry, the Void did it for him. After the invasion, Norman Osborn emerged as a new authority on superhuman affairs and extended a hand to Robert. He spoke to him not as a villain, but as a fellow sufferer, one man with a fractured psyche reaching out to another. Osborn claimed the Void wasn't real, just a symptom of Bob denying his true self. He offered him a modified version of the Sentry serum and persuaded him to join the Dark Avengers. Now under Osborn's command, Robert acted with terrifying authority. He killed the sorceress Morgan Le Fay by tearing her head off. When Atlantean terrorists attacked Los Angeles, the Void, on Osborn's orders, massacred them. Robert died in one of these battles and reappeared, raising unsettling questions about his true nature. Even Emma Frost attempted to help. During the Utopia storyline, she entered Robert's mind and accessed the White Room in an effort to suppress the Void, but it didn't work. When Robert returned to the Watchtower, Lindy, paralyzed by fear, shot him. She no longer saw her husband, only the end of the world in waiting. What followed was the Siege of Asgard, the endgame of Norman Osborn's regime. Robert Reynolds returned from death, but he was no longer trying to suppress the Void. He was the Void. In a desperate bid to escape his curse, he tried flying into the sun, but even the sun could not kill him. The Void pulled him back. Every attempt at heroism had failed, it whispered. Every act of destruction had succeeded. He descended upon Avengers Tower, dark tendrils reaching like a plague. Osborn, now losing control of the monster he'd exploited, made one final plea. He promised the Void a world without Bob Reynolds, without Lindy, and the Void accepted, and so began the final siege. When Ares, the god of war, realized Osborn had lost his mind, he turned against him. Sentry responded by tearing Ares in half. Then came Thor. At first, Sentry hesitated, but Osborn's commands drove him on. He struck down Thor and obliterated Asgard, dropping it from the skies in a blaze of golden fury. The Avengers rallied. Loki, seeking redemption, empowered the heroes using the Norn Stones, but the Void struck back, murdering Loki before their eyes. Iron Man hurled a helicarrier towards him like a missile, briefly dispersing the darkness. In that sliver of clarity, Robert returned and begged for death. Thor answered. He struck Robert down and wrapped the Sentry's body in his cape. He flew him into space and cast him into the sun, hoping to end the cycle forever. But death was never the end for Robert Reynolds. He was resurrected once more, this time by the Apocalypse twins, using both a life seed and death seed to transform him into one of their horsemen of death. Now corrupted beyond recognition, Robert proclaimed himself heir to Apocalypse. He battled Thor in the volcanic world of Ticonria, devastated planets, and nearly tore the fabric of reality apart. And yet a flicker of the old Robert remained. When told of Earth's impending destruction, he chose to help. He carried Exile's corpse into space, a final symbolic act of burdened redemption. In the aftermath, Doctor Strange could not kill him, so he offered a compromise. A mental prison called Sentry World, where Robert lived in split existence, Bob Reynolds by day, the Sentry by night. There, he fought imaginary threats alongside digital versions of Scout and Watchdog. But the illusion didn't last. Billy Turner, the real-world Scout, stole the Conflictor, broke into Sentry World and killed his simulacrum self. Manipulated by Cranio, Billy sought to steal Robert's power. Instead, he was murdered by the Sentry, who merged with the Void in grief and fury and disappeared once more. Even in exile, Robert remained dangerous. While meditating in Pawhuska, he accidentally released psionic toxins that twisted reality. Black Panther's agents of Wakanda intervened, but Robert fled to Reed Richards, begging for a solution. Reed sent him to the negative zone, where anti-polarity rays finally severed him from the Void, but the Void escaped and found new form as a leader in the Counterverse. Robert refused with the Void to stop it once more. He succeeded, but at a cost. Nova died and Robert remained behind, watching over the Dark Dimension. But fate wasn't done with him yet. When Null, the god of symbiotes, invaded Earth, Robert returned. His plan was to fly Null into space and rip him in half, but Null, the living darkness, older than stars, reversed the maneuver and tore the Sentry in two. The Void was absorbed into Null, another shadow in his arsenal, and still Robert's soul endured. His ghost lingered in orbit, speaking to Valkyrie. On the way to Valhalla, he was intercepted and imprisoned inside a corrupted Celestial. Freed by Valkyrie, Robert's spirit finally moved on, or so it seemed. Wilson Fisk's Thunderbolts recovered his body to use as a bomb, but that plan failed and it later fell into the hands of the Blasphemy Cartel, who transformed it into Revenant Prime, a construct of death infused with 100 million screaming souls. It took Clear and the Sorcerer Supreme to destroy it, obliterating the Emerald City in the process. Yet Robert's legacy refused to die. Fragments of the Sentry's power began to manifest across Earth, each host plagued not just with strength, but with Reynolds' memories. Of course, I have no doubt that it won't be long till he comes back in the comics. In the end, Robert Reynolds' story is not one of redemption nor condemnation. It is the myth of a god who could not escape being human, a man broken by the weight of limitless power. He is a meditation on what happens when a mortal mind is given divine authority without the emotional scaffolding to sustain it. His powers, drawn from both science fiction and psychological horror, make him less of a hero and more of a force of nature. He embodies Marvel's ultimate what if. What if the most powerful man alive was also the most mentally unstable?
I'm stronger than you. Let's see.
I'm here. You're not alone.